What's up guys? For this video we're going to update you on a few things, but first we're going to tackle a project that I've discovered that I needed to do very recently. So the other day I was removing the rest of the stuff from the interior on the truck, like this back panel and the little running board pieces and the plastic trim that ran alongside here. None of that stuff is going back in, and what I discovered was this. So let me get down here and you can see, let me just play my hand around here a little bit there. Whew, hey, look at that. There's a hole here. So this is where the seatbelt bolts in. So this is a pretty serious safety concern. The other side's worse. I'll show you guys that in just a second here. But basically you've got just regular old 16 gauge floor material here, and then underneath of it to support it, because this is where the seatbelt attaches, there's like a 12 gauge plate that runs this area here. That piece of steel trapped moisture and caused this area to rust out. That's why the rest of this is pretty fine. There's a few spots, like there's a spot up here that I need to fix as well because that's pretty bad. But the rest of this for the most part is fine. It's just that spot where that plate was that really just completely rotted out. So I have to come in here, cut basically this whole section out because it's really bad underneath. Replace the 16 gauge portion of the floor and weld a new reinforcement plate in the back, drill a hole, and then bolt the seat belt back in. And coming over here, you can see we've got a very, very large hole. So yeah, this is definitely a huge issue. Like I said, this is, you know, what the seat belt attaches to. I need to fix this. Otherwise, if I took this thing to a track, this would not pass tech inspection, and I don't want to be driving something where if I end up in an accident in it, seat belts are going to rip out of the floor and I'm going to end up in the front of the truck instead of in my seat. Thought I was done with all the rust because I just did all the frame stuff. You know, I patched the floor over there last year and did the body mount brackets and did some work up there, and I thought I was done, and then I go and pull out these panels and surprise, there's another rust hole in a very, very unfortunate spot. Because of that being the seatbelt area, it makes more work because I have to make a plate for the back. Really annoying, really sucks. I'm not very thrilled about it, but it's just the way that it goes. So I'm gonna get this cut out and we'll see how far the damage really goes. Alright, well, I made some very good progress on this today. So I got this first patch completely done, other than having the reinforcement plate welded to the back side, but the actual floor section is done. Some of the welds came out alright, like these here, considering I'm using flux core and it's on a pretty cheap welder. This didn't come out bad. There's a few spots down here that were hard to get to, and there was a lot of seam sealer and paint burning off. Even after I had most of it ground out, there was stuff on the bottom underneath that I couldn't get to that kept burning, and then the smoke was messing with the wire and stuff. I'm happy with how that worked out. I ended up torching it, getting it like glowing red hot to kind of hammer it into shape and get it to fit pretty well, and it doesn't look that bad. So yeah, we'll get back with you guys tomorrow. I'll get a little bit more of this knocked out, give you guys an update, and yeah, that's gonna be it for now. I'll see you guys later. Alright, it is now the following weekend. I started working on the truck a little bit more, so here on the driver's side I've got her all finished up. So I got a bolt in here. Of course, it's the bolt for the seat belt, but you can see this is all welded in. I've come in here with the wire wheel, got everything cleaned up in here and around the sides and stuff, so this is all good to go. The bottom side I also cleaned up and treated with rust converter, and of course I got the reinforcement plate for the seat belt welded in here also, so that the bolt doesn't, you know, pull through in the case of an accident or something. And I've left the bolt in there just so I don't lose it. But this side is pretty much done, and I'm now beginning on the other side. So this side required a larger patch because the rust went back further and forward further, so I had to cut a larger hole. I've got this side tacked in except for on the back, and this is going to get difficult because I got a really big gap here, just because of the way that things worked out, which I had a gap on that side as well, but not as bad as this side. Also, because of how bad this rocker panel is, this is going to be very difficult to weld. I'm going to do my best. But as long as I'm welded all the way around these other three sides, we should be fine. I will be replacing these rocker panels at some point anyway, so this whole area here will have to be cut out again. This is the reinforcements 12 gauge steel. Tacking it onto the back, I'm not welding this all the way around because it's just keeping the bolt from being able to rip through the floor easily. So that's what we're using for that. I'll weld that into the back, finish drilling the hole through for the seat belt. We'll get this fixed up and this cab will be pretty much ready to go for the year. The only other rust left on this thing is, you know, these rockers in these cab corners. So but this has to be done now. The rockers can wait a little while longer. So yeah, I'm gonna finish welding this thing up, and we'll come back at it later tonight or tomorrow, and we'll get some rust converter and all that stuff done, and be able to seal this thing back up. Alright, there we go. Everything's welded. I even managed to fill this massive hole, or the massive gap that was right here. Both patches are completely welded in. We got the reinforcement plates on the back. I came in here and just cleaned things up. That's it. We'll come back tomorrow, get this thing cleaned up, get some treatment on it, maybe some seam sealer, depending on how things go, and we'll be all ready to go here pretty soon. Alright, so I pushed the truck out earlier, pressure washed the inside, got everything all cleaned up, and then I threw rust converter on all the bare metal spots, all the rust spots on the seams here, and threw some black paint on it. As you can see now, I've got some seam sealer on everything as well. So I put seam sealer around these riveted in patches here, and then over a few other spots where there was bolts I actually cut out of the seat, and then around the three sides of the rust patch, and there's also some underneath. So once the sealer's done, I'm going to come in here again, throw some more black paint all the way up here, touch up the sealer on the bottom, and then the day after that I'll come out and finish painting the bottom, and then I'll be able to come in here and put the seats and dashboard back in, because everything inside of the cab will be cured, dry, and ready to go. Yeah, we're getting really close. This was a little bit of a surprise, so I'm glad to have this finished so I can actually put the interior all the way back together, and we'll be all good to go. So I'll get back with you guys later. We'll get this thing finished up, and we'll have a complete interior again. Alright, we are back. It is now the following day, and as you can see, we got some of the interior put back together. We got paint on everything. So I got the corner panels back in. The seat belts are bolted back into the top here. I haven't bolted the lower piece back into the repaired section yet because I'm waiting for the paint to cure a little bit more. I've also got the wiring harness, which has the stuff for the speakers on it. That's the only thing on that harness anymore. That used to have the dome light and the seatbelt sensor on it, but I no longer have either of those. So that's just speakers that's in this now. So I got it hooked up to these here so I don't have to pull these back out when I start wiring stuff. And of course we got the dashboard back in, so we've got new cup holders. You guys might remember those used to like pop out on me all the time, but I did get a new cigarette lighter. I got that bolted in. The light switch is in. Front panels in. Both of these lower panels are also in. I just kind of wanted to get everything there so that I had all the pieces, you know, where they belong. The door trim is back in as well, so that's all finished up. So the corner panels, door trim, dashboard, some of its components, the column and stuff I had to unbolt and put back up, so that's all taken care of. Speakers are in. So yeah, it looks really good in here. The floor looks great. You really can't see anything because it's all very deep black. I showed you guys the one wiring harness which is in the truck. That wiring harness, like I said, would have had the dome light, the seatbelt sensors, and I think that's it on it, and then the rear speakers. The only thing left on it's the rear speakers because that's all that's left back there. I de-pinned everything else. So these trucks have one main harness, like the fuse box harness, which is in the cab. There's a second main harness, which is the front harness, which would normally have a second fuse box for the engine bay in it, but I removed that, so that's gone. So we've got the cab harness here, and then this big firewall plug is for the front wiring harness, and then where's the other guy? This is the plug right here for the back of the truck. So I've gone through everything and de-pinned a whole bunch of stuff from all of these harnesses. Basically went through and cut all of the old plugs to stuff I no longer have out of all of these harnesses, and then just started de-pinning all of the wires that were just loose from those old plugs, and then I started de-pinning stuff that supplied power or signal or whatever to those, and just kind of kept going around in circles until I finally had everything removed. Random things. There's a bee. What is he doing? What are you doing down there? You don't belong there. Anyway, I'm glad I didn't disturb him too much. He looks like he needs to go outside or something. We'll get him in a little bit. Anyway, I'll de-pin a whole bunch of stuff, and I have tested at least some of the more important things, like the lights and the turn signals and the starter signal and all of that stuff, and everything is still working. You can see how many things I've removed because the fuse box is almost empty. We've just got a few left. I came in here, this one entire power supply right here is completely gone, which I may repurpose in the future for some Megasquirt stuff potentially, since it's the factory fuse box, and it would be nice to utilize some of the stuff here instead of wiring my own stuff. So for the brake lights, I did some flip-flopping around with some wires. The turn signal is now going to use the old reverse light, so I'm going to put an amber bulb in that, and the turn signal is going to use that right there to be the turn signal rather than having the brake light double duty as the turn signal. So I'll have a solid brake light when the turn signal is on, which is going to be really nice. It's a nice safety feature, especially considering this truck doesn't have a third brake light. This whole box right here, this is literally full of wires that I've removed, as you can see there. So we cleaned things up a lot. This will be simple, it'll be clean. I'm still using all of the factory switches instead of a bunch of toggles. Is Mr. Wasp still over here? Oh, he climbed up there. There he is. He's just chilling. These are pretty much ready to go back in the truck and like test fit the harnesses. And then once everything is in the truck, I can kind of reconfigure some wires. I need to get a battery. The battery is going to be in the engine bay. Mounted it up. It's going to be mounted up here. I'm going to have a power wire running to the alternator, one power wire running to the starter, and then one running to a 250 amp breaker, and then into the truck from the breaker through this hole right here. And the Megasquirt harness is going to come out that hole down there, so everything will be nice and clean and tucked out of the way. But yeah, all these harnesses have been gone through, picked clean, depinned, everything, so it's all real nice and clean looking. There's not a bunch of snipped wires and stuff all over it. It's all clean, dialed. There's a few wires I've left in them that don't go to anything yet, but I'm going to be repurposing them for stuff, which we'll talk about more once I actually start getting things back into the vehicle and wiring all that stuff. But yeah, I'll come back tomorrow. We'll get the seats back in, we'll get the seatbelt buckles in, and just kind of finish dialing stuff in once the paint is cured some more. And then this video will be done. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. We'll get this thing finished up, and that'll be it. Well guys, it has been a few days since the last update here, but I finally got everything completely finished. So we've got both seats back in, seat belts bolted back in, and I even got my floor mats positioned and ready to go. So the interior is pretty much complete. I also put two of the wiring harnesses into the truck. You can kind of see them right there. So those two harnesses are the one for the back half of the truck, the lights, fuel pump and stuff, and then the other one is the one that powers the rear speakers, and originally I would have done the dome light and the seatbelt sensor as well, which I don't have either of those anymore, so it's not in there. And what I did to run these, first of all, I wanted to run them because I intended to hide them under the seats and under the floor mat so that, you know, they're protected and out of the way of everything and everything looks clean, because I can no longer run them under a trim panel here because I don't have the trim panel anymore. So I ran them like that. I wanted to get, at least these harnesses are pretty much done. I'm not adding anything to them, so I ran them through at least on the interior portion of the truck and got all that done. I'll show you guys what the rear body harness does now, because originally the wiring harness for the rear lights and stuff and the fuel pump would have run through a hole in the firewall up in this area, which is stupid because there's no reason for it to have done that from factory, instead of, because it would have ran out and then ran under the floor and then ran back, and the only thing it was wired into up here was a ground and the little bizzle sensor or something on the proportioning valve. That's it. The nearest thing to the front of the truck that wiring harness would go to would have been the fuel pump. So anyway, I ran all that stuff to the back, which I'll show you guys here, but this looks really good. All the wiring, I ended up duct taping it to the floor and then just hiding it all so that the wires aren't just sliding around. The only spot where the wires can be seen is right here, and this is just the one speaker wire that runs to that speaker. The rear body harness is hidden behind the seat, and the rest of this harness is under, you know, the two seats here. So this is the only spot you can see, and I'm probably going to put something here, but for now there's tape over it, so it's not like you can just catch it. And this isn't somewhere where your feet or your hands are really going to be. And then right here is the factory grommet that the wiring harness would have come through the firewall in the front through. Now it's coming through the back of the cabin here, and then it comes out. Let me get down here. It comes out right there. So I don't know why Chrysler didn't do it like that from the factory, because like I said, there's really nothing back up at the front of the truck other than the proportioning valve, and then I guess the reverse light switch would have been there too, but that could have been powered off of the front harness on the truck as well, since the transmission is right there by the engine, so they could have done that. That's where we're at. This video is kind of messy, I guess, because it wasn't really supposed to happen anyway, but got the interior done. It's a little look at some of the wiring work that I've been doing, and now you guys know what's coming up and what has been holding me back, because I should be a lot further along with this thing than I am. I should be a lot further along. The radiator should have been here 2 weeks ago, and it isn't here at all and has vanished. So yeah, that's gonna be it. Thank you guys very much for watching. I will see you guys later, hopefully getting a fuel system together, and that's it. Catch you guys later.